welcome to another fireside chat at the Rise World Summit. I am so privileged to have with me none other than Dahlia Neumann, the Deputy Consul General from the Consul General of Israel in Mumbai. Dahlia Neumann is an Israeli diplomat posted in Mumbai, of course. But prior to being a diplomat, Dahlia has been a media professional for many years and has posted some high-profile positions in print newspapers as well as TV and radio daily news shows. Dahlia is a curious, learning person, and she aspires to use her positive energy to bring India and Israel even closer together. You know, Dahlia, that's a formal introduction. But for me, I think I would like to introduce you as a human person first, human-centric, because in every conversation we have, we are constantly talking about the human element. And I think that's just so
correct.
Wonderful. That's just so wonderful when you're talking to especially diplomats and when you talk about governments, that element sometimes is missing. So yes, we are going to listen. So maybe you can share with us a little bit about what are you planning to talk about as we start your session.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Karen, for having me at this wonderful summit. It's really an amazing project and it's my first time here, so happy to be here and take part. Well, as you said, as you mentioned, I used to be a media person and some of it is still there. Actually, I'm going to maybe talk about it later, but I think there are some big similarities between being in the media and being in diplomacy. And also, I wanted to ask you, when you said that I started in a printed newspaper, do you still remember what those were? Because they become... No, actually, in India, you still have them. In Israel, less and less. But back to your question, I was fascinated with the headline of storytelling. I think I did that before it became kind of a buzzword, and rightfully so. And I think I always try to communicate that way. And I thought it would be nice to just share with you some stories, inspiring stories from Israel, which have their local perspective as stories from Israel, but also are very universal. So I chose a few of those stories dealing with environment. Again, as you said, giving to others a little bit, and also a little bit about courage to make a change, whether small or big. So those are the stories I chose for this session.
Great. And Israel is known, right? Is absolutely known for innovation and sustainability. And I think what you're going to share is going to embody some parts of those issues as well. I mean, those aspects as well. And I think our audience is absolutely eager, waiting for you to share these inspiring stories. And so I'm going to now just stay quiet in the background and let you do the talking. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. So, as I said, happy to be here, and I would like to greet whoever is with us today. And I'm going to talk about a few inspiring stories from Israel, which I picked, and I hope you will enjoy them. So, first story I'm going to share is a story about drip irrigation. Now, you might think that drip irrigation is very maybe niche or technical or only involves farmers and such, but really it's not. It's really a wonderful story about imagination and innovation, and it made a huge change throughout the world, which I knew before, but while preparing for this talk today, I learned was even bigger than I imagined. So drip irrigation, here we go. I'll just tell you a little bit before that the State of Israel was founded almost at the same time as India. The two very young countries share some similarities. They were, at some point, part of the British rule, so that's first similarity. Both of them were found as democratic countries, and they both faced a very difficult challenge, which is water scarcity on the one hand, and the need to grow their own food by agriculture on the other hand. So that's a very big gap to bridge, because you need to grow your own food. You must have agriculture, but water are scarce. And on top of that, you need, of course, all the other things. You need to wash, you need to cook, and whatever it is, and clean. So how do you do that when water are scarce? Israel is a dry country. Part of it is actually desert. Even before the State of Israel was founded, many people gave this problem a lot of attention and focus. There were leaders, there were inventors, engineers. Everyone understood that this issue is crucial for the well-being of this young country. And indeed, some amazing projects were launched. Pipelines were stretched throughout the country from end to end, bringing water from the little lakes, rivers, and reservoirs that we have to every corner of the country. And also, education was there, and also quite important. People were asked to use water very wisely and never ever waste water. I remember that being a young girl in Israel in the 80s, actually. Those messages were everywhere on our little notebooks, on street signs, always to use water wisely and never waste them. So I want to tell a story, a real story, the real true story of one of the people who continuously worked on this crucial topic. His name was Blas. So Simcha Blas, his personal story was no different than the story of many other people. He was born in Poland in the late 19th century. And being very clever and drawn to mathematics, he took engineering and completed his degree. But he was also a Zionist, which is to say that he believed the Jewish state should be founded in the historic location of the homeland of the Jewish people, which was then called Palestine. So dedicated to that, to Zionism, he left his family, left friends, career he started to make, and moved to Israel, to this half-desert place, which was not even a country, in hope that a country will be founded, and willing to help whatever he can to do that. And he started, as I said, even before the country was founded. And when it was founded in 1948, he continued and he devoted his career to the issue of water. He had a long career, a very fruitful career in creating large-scale projects to supply water to the farmers of this small, young, and dry country. And he did some amazing things. But towards the end of his career, he's got into professional disputes and he retired. So he retired after a long career, but he was still in his 50s. And maybe you think that is the age that some people are just dwelling on the past, writing their memoirs, but he did differently. He continued to be very curious, very clever, and dedicated to the topic of water management. He remembered that something he saw at a friend's garden some 20 years before, and that memory started the project which was bound to change the world. So some 20 years before he quit and retired from his official job, he remembered visiting a friend who took him to his garden and showed him a tree which grows without water. A miracle indeed. But when he looked closely at the tree back in the 30s, he saw that even though the soil near the tree was completely dry, some pipe nearby has a little hole or a crack in it, and the water slowly drifted from the hole directly to the roots of the tree. Rather than forgetting about this casual visit and interesting thing, the idea was fresh in his head. And at the age, as I said, of over 50, that point in time, he got head over heels busy with this new idea. Based on this discovery, he began to conduct experiments and examine the possibilities of applying drip irrigation in order to develop an irrigation system that would take advantage of the drip irrigation. In 1959, Blas and his son succeeded in building a basic irrigation system, which they patented. And the method was really simple. This explains what drip irrigation is. The droppers were thin tubes that came out of the water pipe and were placed near the roots of the plant. So this means that the plants get the water drop by drop, very slowly, so much less water is needed, and in a very precise manner, that the water get exactly to the roots. And that has also some important privileges, as I will explain. So these facilities became more and more sophisticated, and what was meant to be a way to handle water scarcity turned out to be much more efficient and productive. And here is why. What happens with drip irrigation is that water is delivered directly to the roots in a controlled manner, drop by drop. The original idea behind this invention was to save water. But as it turned out, it had much more advantages. It saved energy, which was invested in traditional methods such as flooding or sprinkler systems. It saved manpower, which is important because sometimes you don't have a lot of manpower. If you're just a farmer working in a smaller place, maybe you don't have all the people to help you with flooding and sprinklers. It's better for the yields, as plants received a constant and consistent supply of water, the growth and yields are better. And it's better for the soil itself. The method reduces soil compaction and allows for erosion. So the use, and also last thing, very important, the use of pest and disease control becomes less, as the targeted delivery of water can help to reduce the spread, because only the place where the roots are is wet, the rest is dry. So you need much less fertilizers as well. So following the development, Blas sought partners to make this system bigger and more commercial. But you know what? He was rejected. One place after the other, not interested in this new strange thing. Finally, he was approached by a desert-based village whose farmers struggled to grow agriculture in the harsh conditions of water shortage and salty lands. And when they heard about the drip technology, they decided to purchase it. So after replacing the sprinklers, the traditional sprinklers which were there, with irrigation drippers, they discovered that the output increased by about 70%, 70. And the water consumption decreased by about 50%. So that's, if we look on these numbers for a moment, they are huge. It means that you can either use half the amount of water, or you can use the same amount of water for double the amount of the crops and the plants that you're growing. So that was quite an achievement. The initial vision of Blas and that village which purchased his invention was to address the water shortage in Israel. And the use of the dropper was indeed up to the task. Drip technology enables growers to achieve greater yield of quality crops through reduced use of water, soil, and fertilizer resources, and with little impact on the environment. In this way, it helps to ensure a sustainable future. But these advantages carry the name of that village. The name is Netafim, beyond the borders of Israel. Millions of farmers currently use Netafim system. It operates in about 110 countries around the world. So, and in India, it's quite big. So many projects are being done in India by Netafim, and so many farmers can grow better yields using less water. And as you know, India has some pretty vast areas which are dry and water are very scarce. So beautiful projects are being done, enabling farmers to grow more for less. And other than India, so many other countries use this technology. And the annual revenue of Netafim some 5 years ago was approaching $1 billion US dollars. So it's also a story about business success, which is based on innovation. So I hope you enjoyed, I hope you enjoyed the story the same way that I did. And understand how big this invention is. That was the first story about Simcha Blas and the drip irrigation and how it became in use in so many places around the world. And second story I wanted to share was a much smaller one, but still I feel very interesting. This is a story I got to know during my work. You know, as an Israeli diplomat, you hear a lot of interesting things. You meet interesting people, and she was one of them. This is the story of Orly Mergi and her family, and it's, I would say, an Israeli-Indian story. And so the family, Mergi family, were just a regular Israeli family, 2 parents, 2 kids, and they were, and father was an accountant, a mother, which is Orly herself, was a social worker and an artist. And they had a nice life in Israel. And at some point in time, father of the family was offered a quite tempting job in the US. And they stayed there for 3 years in Connecticut, USA, enjoying whatever beautiful life America can offer. Strangely enough, they felt that they weren't content with this. They felt that it's not what they were hoping for. They felt that everything is about getting more electronics and nicer apartment, and they were looking for something else. And they decided to go back to Israel. But on the way, they said, we'll take a little trip to India. And they did that, and they visited friends in Oroville. So Oroville, for those of you who don't know, is a village in Tamil Nadu, which is actually a very interesting community. There are people there doing art, making cheeses, different things, and it's all one community, and they really want to do good in life. Whatever they earn, they share between them, and they really look for doing good for the environment and for humanity, rather than look for better and more expensive and, pampering things, which, I'm not judging. I like those as well. But Oroville is a little different, and they spent some time there. That was back in 2004, which might ring a bell to you as the year of the terrible tsunami, which hit the East Asia coasts. And there too. So in just, a few seconds to minutes, I would say, the calm place, village that they stayed in became, and the villages around it even more, because Oroville itself is a little high above ground, but the neighboring villages and the entire area became this catastrophe area, and so many casualties, and so many people lost their homes, their businesses, their lands in these few minutes of tsunami. It was terrible, and all their friends told them, go back to Israel. What are you doing in this dangerous, dangerous place? And they were going to do just that. But then, they visited the villages nearby, and they saw the measures of catastrophe and pain and human suffering which was going on there. And they decided to stay and try to help. And they did just that. And, the question was, how are we going to help? What can we do? What can we offer? And they decided to stick with what their strengths were. So Orly, being an artist, working with recycling, and her husband being an accountant. I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Danny was an accountant, more into finance and marketing. They said, why don't we start a small business, which is a non-profit, to teach women around the villages in Tamil Nadu, the ones who lost everything, teach them how to make some arts and crafts from actually trash. So materials are there. It's very sustainable and green. And most important, it will, if they will succeed, they thought, it will allow some small number of women to provide for their families, and maybe a little more, maybe earn back some self-esteem and enjoy being able to provide and to have the livelihood source. And that's what they did. They started with a small number of women in Tamil Nadu, and they really invested time and resources in training them. They went through a few weeks training process regarding how to make the process, the products from the trash, but also how to market, how to plan their businesses in a small scale, but still how to plan ahead, and how to handle whatever you sell, and how to put a price tag on your products. And it went well, actually. And then they got a little bigger, and were able to have another women to participate in this project. And to this day, some 100 women around the villages of Tamil Nadu, around Oroville, took part in this beautiful project, and they even are teaching other women. So the impact is even bigger, and they produce this, in my mind, beautiful products, whether there are jewels or baskets or different things that are made from trash, and they are made into this very lovely things, and they are able to earn their money. And some work was also invested in women, in empowering those women. So not only teach you how to do the products and not only teach you how to plan your small business, but also let you know that you are worthwhile a lot, and you can have your voice being heard. That was a very inspiring, in my view, project. And the project, which I didn't mention its name yet, is called WELL, which is Women Empowerment, Livelihood, and another L is there also, which at the moment I don't remember what it stands for. But if you're interested, absolutely go online and you'll find the WELL project in Tamil Nadu. A few years later, they also expanded and made the WELL Cafe. And it's a big cafe around Orville with only women working in the kitchen and selling their very delicious foods. And again, it's a non-profit project, so whatever money they earn is being shared by the women who are working there and invested in more development. So I really found this story inspiring in the terms that this family, and especially Orly herself, really was able to go above the temptations of material things and look into something else, look into helping other people, and look into, while doing that, helping the environment and keeping a sustainable business and teaching other people about sustainability and reuse materials in arts and crafts. And she has been in India for many years. She is just now, as we speak, is coming back to Israel for a few more months, but she might come back. She's the kind of people who are not planning very much ahead. They just go with the flow and do beautiful things. So that was her story of Orly. And, you know, last story I wanted to share is actually my personal story. So I wouldn't call it inspiring, and definitely not at the same level as the previous two stories which I shared. But still, I thought it's worth sharing this with you today. And I would say that's a story of daring to make a huge change in your life. Maybe at a stage where other people think is maybe too late. So as Karen said, I'm an Israeli diplomat. This is my first posting here in India, here in Mumbai. And before that, I was in the media. And I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel only 3 years back. And I was already approaching 50, don't tell anyone. And, or my, late 40s. And I think as for the reactions and the comments I got, many people think there is something unusual to it. So I decided to talk a little bit about that. So as I said, I had a long career in media. I used to work in television, and I started off as a news editor, and I've always been in hardcore news, current affairs, international affairs, and I really liked that. And after that, I've moved to more of digital content and combined that with a more traditional media. And after a while of doing that and enjoying and also following the changes which I mentioned about how newspaper become smaller and smaller in circulation, and things change dramatically in the media world. So following this, I thought maybe it's time for another thing. Maybe it's time for something new outside the world of media and communication. And I want to share a little bit about, these thoughts and what helped me to make this decision. Because also I think it has something Israeli about it. Israel is a very non-formal society. We don't call each other Mr. and Mrs. or Miss or Ms. so much. Children at school don't call their teachers Ms. something or Mr. something. They call them by their good names. And it's really informal. We dress informal. We like our flip-flops, and it works for us. I think it also means that some of the hierarchy is not as strong and established as it is in other places. And sometimes that makes it easier for people to go out of their boxes and do new things. And that's why I'm sharing this, because I think being an Israeli had something to do with it. You're less afraid of what other people would say. Either you don't care, or maybe they are too busy minding their own business, or you don't care. And I was able to try. I said, I'll try my luck. It's really hard to get admitted, so chances are low. But I really felt like I have nothing to lose. And I have my family to thank for supporting me and pushing me to try. And I did. It was a very long process of tests and simulations and interviews and whatnot. And it took a year. And at the end of that year, I got the great news, which are that I'm welcome to join the cadets course. And that's what I did. And it was really fascinating. And I discovered that being a little older than the other cadets actually has its privileges as well, because some things are very interesting when you learn new things, but some maybe are not as interesting. For me, everything was fascinating because it's been so long since I was in the position of just sitting in a classroom and learning something new. It has been so long since that happened. My university degree was back in the early 2000s, so I was just happy to learn new things. Some interesting, some more interesting, and some okay. But I really enjoyed that. And I'm also thankful that the people in the ministry did not have an ageism or ageist approach, and they admitted me. And so many things are similar between being a diplomat and being in the media. So definitely my past experience is very useful in this posting regarding the ability to kind of understand what is the most important thing. Like when I was editing a news piece and I had to understand the headline, understand what are the most important things that I want to emphasize, or what is the importance thing, if you want to get to bring the important things at the start and then elaborate a little bit. So that's very important in diplomacy as well. And of course, all the things which are regarding speaking to people, being able to give lectures, Zoom presentations like this one. So that's also useful and relevant. And in that sense, my past experience is great. And also being a journalist and a TV news anchor, as I was, you get to meet a lot of people. And I was able to enjoy these contacts, and hopefully already did some nice projects here in India based on people I knew before, and I'm sure some more projects will come ahead, again, based on contacts and things that I know, because when you're in the world for a while, you know people, and that's helpful. Most of the time, it's for the best. So I would just say that my kind of moral of the story is to dare, and don't think too much about whether it's acceptable or not, what would other people think or not. And you can share your dilemmas with your loved ones. That's always good to hear their opinion, because they care about you, and probably they're clever people. And go with the adventure that you want to do. And I think that maybe I have that maybe in common with the other Israeli women that I told you about, Orly, even though her path is much different and more, I would say, free spirit than mine. Well, she's an artist and I'm a diplomat, so very different. So that's all from me. These are my 3 inspiring stories. I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you found them, sorry, not an English speaker by a native. I hope you found them interesting. Thank you so much for listening and attending this session. Happy to share this with you. Namaste and shalom.